Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
It's the Formula Vee Australia E-Series, and it's a car known for producing very close, very competitive racing. Tonight, we bring you live coverage from Watkins Glen Classic Cup layout, a circuit known for producing very, very close and competitive racing. I do not anticipate a boring minute tonight. Thanks for joining us for round 3 as we broadcast live on SimSpeed TV. David Haynes here with Scott Rankin. Scott, what a great car, what a great championship, what a great circuit. It is so good to be here with the Formula Vee Australia E-Series, bringing together sort of club races, state level races from all across the country, racing together here on iRacing.
Yeah, that's just it, isn't it? It's about getting people out, about getting people having fun on your Wednesday night, and it's about getting them into a car that they're going to be going side by side just about 95% of the racing tonight. Honestly, if this car's not side by side at some point during the racing, I think they're really doing a little bit wrong, to be honest. I'm actually really disappointed. I missed the previous round with the flu, actually, before Christmas, because I was really thoroughly enjoyed the racing that we experienced at Phillip Island. What did I miss in round number 2?
Well, Winton's definitely a little bit narrower, a little bit tighter, requires a little bit more elbows to make moves, and I think the racing definitely reflected that at times at Winton. But after those first 2 rounds, this is what the championship looks like. It's a John Merritt world, and the rest of us are just living in it at the moment. Early stages in this championship. Jason Cutts in second, and Glenn Cito Riddle there in third. Mikey Harland, Alexander Newton, Trevor Hearn, Kyle Ridley, Rob Crisdale, Cameron Edwards, and Liam Caplice are all names that have been on our lips through the first 2 rounds of racing. But at this circuit, Watkins Glen, very high speeds in a car that will slipstream very, very effectively. It does become a little bit of a lottery. We've seen very, very big grids, and that continues, and it makes consistency pretty important for these championship results as well.
Yeah, and you're going to see an evolution of the racing tonight. We've now stepped into round 3. There's 2 rounds in the book as we take the virtual journey to Watkins Glen International, all the way in good old US of A. That's it, right up there in the northeastern part of the United States of America, up near New York, up near the Canadian border. And you're going to travel into this beautiful section of the American countryside. A lot of mountainous areas. You see that with the track layout as well. It moves up and down a few hills and down, so forests all around. That's what it looks like in terms of the road surface. The layout that we're using here tonight is the shortest of the layouts that's actually available here at Watkins Glen. 7 corners. A whole bunch of different cars are capable of doing sub 1 minute lap times around this course. Formula V is not one of those, but a minute 33 is what we're looking about here, Dave, in terms of competitive lap pace tonight.
Yeah, potentially. While it's not many corners, it is a reasonable amount of distance. In fact, it is longer than Winton. Feels like it's got half as many corners. It's definitely got half as many braking zones, and from that turn number 1, with a bit of banking, can carry a lot of speed through there. Absolutely flat chat up through the S's. In the long run, no bus stop chicane, no inner loop to that outer loop corner. Pretty wide radius. It's also banked to let you carry lots of speed. And then you run down to 2 very quick final corners. So not a whole lot of braking around here in cars that would already race pretty close. I wonder how that's going to reflect in the racing. Definitely looking forward to the racing action ahead of us. This is sort of a taste of our practice, and it's not about your clean air lap times at all. It's about how you place yourself in the pack here. It's Daytona Talladega style stuff for these Formula V's here.
Well, look, I mean, trip to America, right? You've got to get yourself in some slipstream-based racing. Is this effectively the super speedway of Formula V's? Is that what we're going to be referring to it throughout the duration tonight? Bump drafting, how do these guys manage that? There is a correct way to bump draft these cars. You're going to see a little bit of technical know-how come to the fore, but it's also going to be timing, Dave. I think the keys to success. First and foremost, you put the key in the ignition and you start the car. That's the first key to success. You don't start the car, you're not going racing. You can't win a race that way. Number 2, it's positioning,
You say
timing.
that, but people go down the hill climb backwards in this thing with the engine off.
Well, I still have to get
It's
the car
literally
rolling, Dave.
It's literally the soapbox derby machine. You can bump the starter with the ignition off, I think.
Yeah, sure. Look. Yes, 100%. But this isn't Mount Washington. This is Watkins Glen. They both start with W. I know a little bit difficult for the dyslexic among us. I know, I understand, it's okay. But keys to success, how much you utilize the track boundaries. Remember, at the outer loop, you can now use all of that runoff on the left-hand side of the outer loop. The runoff on the right-hand side, just before we come to the last corner as well, you can use a fair chunk of that. Make sure you keep 2 wheels on the ripple strip at all times. That'll prevent you from getting an off track. In terms of turn 1, we're going to see it here in 10, 9, 8, 7. Yeah, they're about there right now. Have a look at how much runoff area these guys are using. How are they rotating the car? How are they setting themselves up for that very, very long straight? It's going to be not necessarily the fastest driver here that wins tonight, but the one that has the most nuance and understanding of how air moves over these cars and how can they can make these things the most efficient in a straight line.
Absolutely. So you're seeing the practice times up on the top left there. West Australian Reese Gardner goes to the top as Toller demonstrates what you've got to do to make a pass stick here. So they're 3 wide, and he's really worked to get himself to the inside. Everyone really using this open practice session to feel out how it's going to go in the race. And we do have a couple of races coming up for ourselves tonight. I do believe it will be the 3 of them, 15 minutes into that 20 minutes. So the familiar format, it gives you some good opportunities. But again, with 1 qualifying session into 3 races, sort of that progressive grid with a 1 invert, you do need to make sure you finish every race, which is not going to be easy. Every lap, every corner, every pass carries with it some risk.
Qualifying, to be perfectly honest with you, I cannot put a number on the amount of accidents I've seen here on the S's on first laps, and I'm sure you'd be exactly the same, Dave. It carries a ton of risk on lap number 1. Everyone's bunched together. Everyone knows that you can gain the most time up on lap number 1, the most track position, the most aggression. You've got a lot to gain, but you've also got a significant amount to lose as well. Race number 1, all about qualifying. Qualifying is so key. If I'm in these tracks right now, if I'm out there, I've gone out, I've done a couple of laps, and then I'm trying to find some clear air on that track. I want to nail that qualifying up. I want to make sure that I get that right. If I'm in the top 5 or 10 here, I'm setting myself up success. I'm minimizing the risk on lap number 1. I think that is a lot more key than a lot of guys will give it credit for tonight.
Throwing my eyes up and down the paddock, and I can see that we do have, at a minimum, our top 3 in the championship ready and raring to race tonight. John Merritt's been out there practicing. Glencito Riddle is 7th on the timing at the moment. Jason Cutts, he's just been bumped from the top of the practice timing as Matthew Wall takes that spot away. So everyone in this new year back ripping, maybe refreshed and raring to go racing.
Yeah, and that's the critical thing, isn't it? You know, a reset over the holidays. There was a lot of bumping and grinding from what I heard. The drama, as Winton's known to create. Well, there could be some drama here tonight. Remember, we've seen, even back up at Phillip Island, when these guys were sort of learning how to position their cars around each other a lot, Dave, there was a lot of misjudging when they got side by side, when they positioned the car. I'm expecting a few more of that. This spot right here on the track, see the cars crest the hill? That, I think, is probably going to be the trickiest part of the track, and the one that is going to cause the most people to come unstuck. Somebody in the queue is going to lift, and then you've got the concertina effect, the accordion effect. One guy lifts, the next guy has to lift slightly more because he's got to back it off a little bit more. The next guy has to lift slightly more, but has less time to react to it, and so on and so forth through the pack. That's what's going to cause accidents. I'm expecting...
Oh, that's going to cause accidents. Brody Watts and his teammate Trevor Hearn trying to practice their bump drafting. This is not a car that does it kindly.
You've got to be precise. Super is possible, absolutely possible, but you have to be mega precise. And I mean mega precise.
It is trying to balance a golf ball on a pinhead kind of thing with the very narrow nose and very narrow tail and rear gearbox structure on these cars. Yes, it is possible, but they are not stock car spec bumpers. Not even close.
There's no real surfaces. Remember, with your stock cars as well, in terms of what cars race best and draft assist the best, stock cars are obviously the best at it. And the reason for that is they have a large surface of transfer energy between the cars, and even make sure that you bunch air and air pockets up in between two cars and transfer energy that way. Formula V's, none of that. There is no surface on these cars that matches up with another car at all. There's no way. You can't match it up. You can't position it. So, you know, a little bit of nuance in terms of how to do it. You've got to time it absolutely perfectly, and you've got to position. I believe the way to actually do it correctly isn't actually a square bump. I believe it's slightly offset. You've got to get that nose cone actually inside their rear axle slightly to get it transferred. It's really tricky to do, and if the guy ahead of you moves his wheel slightly, you're all dead.
Well, here we go. 35 drivers. Practice is done. Now it all starts to matter. Qualifying right now, 10 minutes, 2 laps on this shortened Watkins Glen layout. That is plenty of time to get your out lap and get your 2 flying laps. It's going to set your position amongst the 35 drivers for race number 1, which is 15 minutes. And with 90-second lap times, very easy to say that's probably going to be a 10-lap race there. Then the finishing order from race 1 goes into race 2 with the invert. And so race 2, expect to see a lot of drivers, a lot of our strong drivers and our championship contenders looking to work their way back through the field again for the longer final of the 3 races. Every single one of those races paying points, and none of them affording any room for errors. Let's look at our drivers now. Ray Oliver, side by side from up in the air and low down in the Formula V. He's on his out lap now. How do you prepare the car? How do you prepare the tyres for these next 2 laps to count?
First and foremost, you've got to get some sort of temperature in them, but not a lot. It's a little bit of wiggling around. The car will pick up enough tyre temperature by the time you get around the last corner. The critical factor is actually the momentum. You've got to come off this last corner with as much of a surge as you possibly can. That means it's going to be a real late turn in, picking up the throttle as early as you possibly can. And remember, these cars can scrub speed off by having too much steering wheel in. Look in, try and back it down. Too much speed into turn number 1. So momentum lost, tyres overheated, got to reset, got to go again.
One of only 2 qualifying laps, and at the first corner, at the first hurdle, Ray Oliver pushes it too deep into the braking zone, loses the rear, and will lose that lap time, and it makes it do or die on his next and final lap. Here's some other drivers starting their first flying lap, including Sean McKenzie. Do you know what I love here? Is he's rocking the white helmet, not because he's a lazy iRacing painter, but because that's true to what he actually races in his real Formula V. And like you'll see if you go to any of the state-based championships all around Australia where Formula V racing is popular. I've seen Sean racing in Queensland. We've got a very, very strong contingent from WA as well as Victoria, New South Wales, and all over the country. And even Thortalla is showing as Club UK and Ireland. So it is a super popular category for a long time with a lot of history as well in every corner of Australia and the globe.
Yeah, I think that's the key. That's the key to the Formula V's success, is that anywhere you pack up, you take your Formula V with you, you're thinking about maybe moving internationally, take the Formula V with you. Oh, maybe sell it here and then buy a new one when you move internationally. It's quite expensive to ship a racing car like that. It's quite expensive to ship any racing car. But yes, it's successful anyway. You know, if you show up at a car track somewhere in the world and as high as Formula V's, it's going to be the same format. It's the same baseline. It's the same car internationally. And, you know, it's something that drivers can pick up, something that your Max Verstappen's, your Charles Leclerc, your Craig Lowndes, your Jamie Whincups, then your international rallying stars, just about all of them. I don't know that there would be too many race stars out there that haven't driven a Formula V at some point in your life, because it creates a sense of understanding of what the car's doing on the suspension. It creates a real sense of understanding of where the weight's positioned on that rear end. It creates an understanding of how much speed you can actually carry into corners. And more importantly, it sets you up for success for that slow in, fast out that is so critical to just about every formula of racing right the world over. So, I mean, it's the perfect car. It really, really is, because you just can't get better than a perfect learning car that sets you up for success later on.
It's a go-kart pretending to be a car. It really is. When you look at how unstable it is on turn in, how critical the mid-corner speed carrying the momentum is. It's exactly the same. Love that zoom background as we've got times coming in from the first flying laps from our drivers, and it's Lee Partridge up the top from John Merritt from Tane Venables. I can't get, as far as Zoom backgrounds go, maybe we're a bit like 2 years too late on funny Zoom backgrounds, but that is a good one. And I'm seeing quite a lot of these drivers coming around right now to finish their second and final qualifying time. So it starts to really, really matter now. Glencito Riddle looks like he's abandoned his second. And for Dean Hunt, has he had a drama on that one? He's currently 15th and 6/10 away from Lee Partridge, who has that top of the board time. Merritt and Venables in second and third have used up all of their allocation of laps as well. So if anyone is going to steal pole away, if anyone's going to move up in the grid, it's going to be from a bit deeper in the field. Here's Phil Gardner just completing in the number 37.
Can I just say, from our worst time at the back end of the field to the top is just about bang on 2 seconds. You don't see that in any formula right the world over. It just doesn't happen. You can't get cars that close together right up and down the 90-second lap. Look, the issue for a lot of these guys, and the guys particularly down at the back end of the grid, they would have made one mistake in their lap and lost 3/4 of a second. Because if they were just slightly late on getting on the throttle at turn 1, they've lost that speed all the way up the hill through the S's, all the way down that straight into the outer loop. But one mistake cost them everything here tonight.
You exit that turn 1, you look at your delta, you look at your timing, and if you're not carrying the momentum out of turn 1, you kind of know whether your lap is going well or not, because that run out of turn 1 carries you all the way up the S's for basically the next 2 kilometers. It's half of your lap. It's so critical. Here's Jason Cutts. Does he have an opportunity to move up? Looked like an improvement. No, just short of it. But he's still inside of the top 10. And I think with that invert coming for race number 2, that's the section of the field you want to be in, that top 20, that top 10, that sort of section. Tom Davey taking the pit entry blend line there, and almost everyone left pit lane at the start of that session, got their out lap and their 2 flying laps in early. Not many drivers, if any, on a flying lap at the moment. Everyone has completed 2 flying laps except Dortala, Dylan Thomas, and Glencito Riddle, who I think might have had a mistake or fenced it on the second lap. But that's what you got to do, isn't it? Because if your baseline of the first flying lap is good, you got to push the envelope somewhere on that second lap. Take some risk to see if you can improve, because there's no point matching your first lap. Once you got that in the bank, you got to go further. You got to try harder.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you're going to be playing with track limits all night tonight, just to try and keep the momentum up and have a look at the lines. You're going to see crisscross lines everywhere. So I'm interested to see, perhaps who are the guys that maybe qualified up front that maybe make a mistake on the opening lap. Which lane do you want to be in? Look, I think over the years with NASCAR racing, I've seen a lot of, sometimes there's some luck to it. Well, this is going to be luck here tonight. If you're in the left-hand lane and somebody makes a mistake in the left-hand lane, that entire lane is going backwards. Then you're going to see a max exodus from these guys trying to get over into a different lane, trying to look for a way out. And the track's going to be jammed. The track is going to be clogged. It is going to be... You've seen traffic queues. Was there a traffic queue on the way to the cricket there tonight, Dave? I know you were at the cricket tonight.
Look, with 400, 500 people in the stands, no, not much of a queue.
Okay.
We're looking at a replay here of the pole lap, and as we do, I want you to tell me what you're thinking for lap number 1 here. Between turn 1 and the outer loop, are they going to be 5 or 6 wide?
I don't think you can fit 6 wide. I think 6 is pushing it. 4 is safe. If they're only 3 wide, somebody's going to do something stupid and position the car in a difficult spot. Right here, this is the point where the field will start to fan out as they crest this hill and start to come down the straight. About here, they're going to go, where do I want to be? Do I want to be left? Do I want to be right? And they've got to a few seconds to sort of decide where they're going to position the car. If they come down here to the outer loop and they've now chosen the right-hand side and a hole opens up in the left, this is your last opportunity. About now to change your line. Now you're settled for the corner. You're committed. Wherever you're going to be, you've got to stay there. Are you going to have to bleed off of that throttle? How much are you bleeding off that throttle? Where are you positioning the car? Do you trust the guy next to you? Trust is such a crucial factor in these cars. It's just, there's a lot of mental load, I think, tonight, and a lot less driver load. So it'll be interesting to see who's got the old racing brain switched on and who maybe brought all the talent in their right foot and forgot to install the brain update tonight.
Tell you what, not many gear shifts around this place as we look at Lee Partridge's pole lap just coming to an end there. Interesting line out of the outer loop from him, but it's fourth gear everywhere except turn number one. Looks like just 2 gear shifts around the lap. And that time, that lap, good enough to put Lee Partridge on pole by more than a tenth over the championship leader, John Merritt. They will share the front row. Behind them, Tane Venables and Glenn Riddle. Brodie Watts and Kyle Ridley for row number 3. Then comes Cam Edwards and Trevor Hearn. Reese Gardner and Jason Cutts there completing the top 10. Ray Oliver, Matthew Harriott are on row 6. Tom Davey, Sean McKenzie, Matthew Wall, Franz Estebauer, Dean Hunt and Ayrton Filippi takes us through to 18th place or so. Scroll the other way, please, Mr. Director. You've got it. James Nesbitt, Andrew Gamo, Gary Myers, Alex Newton, Liam Cleese deeper in the field than I would have expected. And then behind him, Dylan Thomas. Another great field of Formula V's. Keeps going with Rob Crisdale, Josh Munro, Andrew Beecham, Stephen Butcher, Jordan Bielek, Jonathan Scary. That would be 30 to the back of the grid then. Nick Fisher, Alex McDonald, Neville Betteridge, and Matthew Walker, the last driver with a qualifying time. Thor Tuller and Phil Gardner without. We did see Thor out in the practice session, so might see that driver in the race. Going to be a standing start. The only time in this race they use first or second gear.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think there's going to be a few drivers using first and second gear to recover their cars from the left or right-hand side of the scene. Look at that, 35 cars. The last couple of cars are almost in the last corner, and we've seen that a couple times this season. The lights are coming on. We're about to go racing. And man, Formula V, it's the most exciting it can be.
Air-cooled smoke in the air. Green flag waving, not a great getaway from the second row. One driver's missed the grid, and we think we might have seen a jump start from one of those Echuca Toyota Vs to the right-hand side of your screen, but it's a battle for the lead in towards turn number 1. The pressure's down, the tyres are cold, and this car is super twitchy at this point of the race in the state. Lee Partridge converts his pole into the race lead, but you know it's not going to last as the whole field picks up speed, gets into the slipstream, and works their way up through the S's for the first time.
I can tell you what, there are cars barrel rolling through turn 1. There was a huge chaos about P20 on backwards. There was about 4 or 5 cars that just sort of got a little bit together. Now they'll fan out 3 wide. We can't quite get to 4. There's enough space there for 4, so not to the 5 and 6 wide, but they'll come down and over the crest for the first time here tonight. 3 wide? Will they get through the outer loop 3 wide? That's the question we're about to ask.
Matthew Harriott in orange there had massive momentum catching this pack, but nowhere to go. It's a sprint car salute 3 wide through the outer loop on the opening lap. Our lead pack being very, very aware of where their wheels are, where the other drivers are, but maybe not so much behind. That's at least 2 cars. Look at the V pirouette around its axis behind, and big damage for both of those drivers, both of those cars in the mid-pack. Up front here, John Merritt swoops through into the lead, and he carries massive momentum through the final corner that others can't manage. But there, Glenn Riddle going for the pit entry, he did jump the start, revved it, and it was accidentally in gear, and that'll penalize him massively in this first race, and that pain will continue all the way through the rest of the night, potentially. So much smoke in the air in turn number 1, and some of it's fire smoke from your pole sitter, is it?
Yeah, he's absolutely backwards. He's absolutely muffed it and facing in the wrong direction. And guess what? The field made it through. How did he find a gap there, Cam Edwards, to get the car escaped out to the left-hand side of the road? There's this huge pile-up on pit lane entry as well. Pit lane entry is actually jammed. Pit lane entry is blocked.
Oh my word. These Formula Vs, they turn it on everywhere, but at Watkins Glen, it's chaos so far. They are 4 wide for the lead. Sean McKenzie has come from nowhere on the grid. He's third position with his nose in front, but he'll be around the outside. Can he cut down to just 2 wide, 3 wide behind him, 4 wide behind that? And there goes Matthew Harriott, the orange driver, backwards towards the wall at the outer loop.
My word, there's cars just going left, right, and center. The pack has now been thinned down to 13 cars in this lead pack up to just 2 laps. We've got 12 minutes of racing left. There's going to be replays left, right, and center. Somebody's lost the rear on the way into pit lane. That's on the end of the first lap. Somebody else, outside barrier, cleans up another car. Who are the white car? Look at them get through. And then there's going to be cars trying to get to pit lane, trying to come in and get their fast repair, and everyone else is just trying to get out of the way. It is, look, to be perfectly honest, I think it's easier to get into Coles in peak hour.
Yeah, more chance of getting a ham on Christmas Eve than getting into that pit lane. It's looking good for your top 2, though. John Merritt and Brodie Watts. You can see that they've got almost 2 seconds in hand over the rest of the field where it looks like the action is. Sean McKenzie is in third at the moment. This pack behind is going to jump that gap very, very quickly. It's almost a whole minute at full throttle from turn number 1 up the hill through the S's down the long back straight and into a very, very quick banked outer loop corner. Side by side for the lead. They're 3 wide, 4 wide. You can't count it behind. It chops and it changes. McKenzie holding the middle of the road to try to defend that 3rd place. John Merritt holding on to the lead. McKenzie gets absolutely swamped, and that's what's going to happen if you're the front of this pack.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I've already started digging through the field and having a look at where our championship contenders are at this point in time. So obviously, we've got somebody up at the front end. It's John Merritt, who's leading the way in terms of the championship and everything. This is the view from Cam Merritt's car. Just try to transition into turn 1, and that's what's bobbled the pack up and created the gap. But I can tell you that Glenn Cedar Riddell, at the end of the most recent lap, was down in 25th, which I think is shuffled around. I think he's back to 28th now. Jason Cutts, is 25th now at the end of the current lap. He must have just passed the start-finish line. So there's 2 of your top 5 in the championship that are way down the running order and not even in the top 20, so can't get the benefit of an inverted grid in race 2. There's contact.
4 wide going in towards turn number 1. They try to cut down into 3 lanes. There's contact between the drivers on the outside. Both of them look to keep it off the wall, but Philippe Partridge, your pole sitter, well, I mistook Cam Edwards for him earlier, but this time it is Melbourne Performance Centre's own Philippe Partridge with a bit of smoke, a bit of backwards, maybe needing that 1st or 2nd gear in the runoff of turn number 1. Back to 4 wide again in this group. When you're the meat in the sandwich, there's bread one side, bread the other, and sauce next to you.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of cheese. Are we going to call the pulse tuning engines cars the cheese in this sandwich? Because boy, do they look like the right color.
Yeah, they do. Look, they look like cheese and tomato sauce there, to be honest with you. So chuck some snags in there, grill up some onions. We are having an absolute barbecue with Formula Vee Australia E-Series. Any track with a long straight, the Vs tend to race like this. You get a really big slipstream effect in that 4th gear as the air-cooled engines top out at their power quite early. But this is a track known for the same thing in GT cars, in skippies, in anything. If they keep it clean, they're inseparable. And they won't. Oh. There is a pile-up on the straight out of the final corner, 4 or 5 cars around. Easy to spot Sean McKenzie. Who's that going backwards into the wall? Couple of cars backwards.
I think it wasn't Dean Hunt. Dean Hunt was definitely one of the
cars.
cars.
All it takes is 2 wheels to tangle. It skittles the whole pack.
Yeah, and it's not even that. It's just wrong place, wrong time for all of those guys. They can't react. You look at some of the guys that were maybe in the middle of the pack. Say Ray Oliver, for example. He would have had nowhere he could have gone. He's literally got to hold his lane and drive straight into an incident when that happens because he's got a car behind him, he's got a car in front of him, car left and a car right. He cannot go anywhere, and somehow he just happened to be in the right spot at the right time.
So looking down that long straight at our leading group, Brodie Watts leads John Merritt this time around. You can see that working together, both of them are able to take the racing line through every corner and able to effectively leapfrog on each straight. And that is working out really well for them compared to the 2 wide, 3 wide, or whatever you want to call this. Even when they keep it clean, the drivers at the front aren't able to carry their momentum on these compromised lines.
Oh, that's unlucky. The blue car is basically, they've gone, I've got a little bit of room here. I want to move across to the left-hand side so I can set up an open up turn 1. And that's how early you've got to start predicting it. And literally the moment that he's moved across, the car has filled that gap. It's just time. There's nothing anyone in that situation can do because they've got the momentum. They've just arrived at the wrong spot at the wrong time.
So a 15-minute race here in race number 1. We would be just past that halfway point. They've completed 5, and I'm seeing 5 more to go. So it looks like our races 1 and 2 are going to be 10-minute races tonight. Sorry, 10-lap races in those 15 minutes.
Maximum race distance of 15 laps, but the car's just not capable of doing that distance. There's another incident that's going on in the S's. Another incident. There's a huge one. There's cars left, right, and center. This is the view on board from Liam Caplice, and you can just see all he's trying to do. Cars coming at him left, right, and center. Just keep it as central as possible. Well, Dave, sometimes you got to commit to the throttle. They say lift and you're dead. Sometimes you just got to pin it and hope.
Hi to my Alex Horn at home. That's all I can say about that replay and his perspective. Again, another look at your leaders. It's all smooth sailing at the moment for first and second place. That's where I would want to be. They are sailing all on their own. This is what's happened elsewhere for Liam Caplice because he might have had 9 lives. He used up 8 and he just gets a little hit from behind. 9 times out of 10, that doesn't work.
I think I might have been Ray. It was either Dean Hunt or Ray Oliver in the Frog League Jeeps car. That's just they've tried to. I mean, again, you're talking millimeters in these cars, absolute millimeters, and the cars will wander around on the road a little bit on the tire. So it's you've got to be precise as anything else. If anyone ever says that a bigger, more powerful car, you've got to be more and more precise. No, it's actually these cars that you've got to be more precise because. Millimeters. Look how close these guys are racing.
Just looking at some of our retirements, some of our drivers who are a little out of place. Your likes of Reese Gardner, Jason Cutts, Glenn Riddle, Sean McKenzie, all a little deeper in the field than you would expect.
That's brave. The move from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the road. He's timed it perfectly. But that's an aggressive move from the left of the road to the right for Philippi.
Did you notice from Lee Partridge's pole lap, he kept it really tight on the exit of the outer loop there, and it looks like if you're on the inside, the banking works better for you. You carry a little bit more momentum with a little bit less scrub, and you are trying in this kind of race car to keep all the momentum you possibly can and avoid all the scrub you possibly can. So through the outer loop, I think the right-hand side for the drivers is definitely where it looks like you want to be.
I can tell you that P20 is where I want to be right about now because that's going to set me up for so much success in race number 2. And there's a huge fight on it. Trevor Hearn and Alexander Newton are the 2 drivers that are competing 21st and 20th. But they're a little bit out on their own. So that one's going to be an interesting battle to watch. And there's another incident in the outer loop. Another set of 3 cars have come together in the outer loop.
What type of magnets are they putting in the nose of these things today, to be honest with you?
It's got to be neodymium. Can't be anything weaker than a neodymium magnet.
No, absolutely not. At the top, your leaders. The 49 of Watts leads the championship leader of John Merritt 164. Behind them, well, every time you look, it'll be slightly different because they're 3 wide between Ray Oliver, Kyle Ridley, Robert Crisdale, and Ayrton Filippi. For Oliver and Ridley, teammates together, and like, there's quite a bit of teammate action going on in 3rd, 4th, and 5th here. I quite fancy that at this stage of the race, the way the slipstream can mean leading isn't necessarily where you want to be. I'd like to have a buddy.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious in this sort of a situation. I think slingshot drafting is definitely worth a try. And if I was in the Frog Leap Juice boys' shoes, it's something that I'd give a test. The straight's just long enough from turn 1 all the way up the hill for them to maybe get the 3rd car out ahead of the rest of them, and then towing the other guys along. But maybe it's not. It depends on how much you have to lift through the outer loop. So you'll see a few different strategies from that perspective. And look at the puffs of smoke as they do their 1 shift for the lap. It's a sight that just look at how close together the drivers are.
Absolutely. Trying to stick the nose down the inside, but the door gets closed on Ayrton Filippi. He's got the green rims to the teal rims of Oliver and Crisdale.
There's Ridley,
Who's had
though.
a lap down with them? Riddell.
Is it Dean Hunt? It might be. Oh, yeah, sorry. My apologies. You're correct.
24th place, yeah, is a lap down with them, and he's caught them. That kind of goes to show the pace that he's got. He's caught this 3rd place pack, but he is a lap down to them and a lap down to the overall leader. We're going to start the final lap at the end of this one. And for Merritt and Watts, and for the other pack that we're watching over the final podium spot, now is when you start playing more chess grandmaster than racing driver.
Yeah, you've got to position yourself. There's no point being the last car in the pack now. You want to be moving up at least to 4th place. Barry's got the flag in hand, and for these two, Merritt's has got the lead. Is that the right spot to be? To be perfectly honest, to get the move done as 1 car on your own is not easy to do. So he's got to time it. He's got to get a great run here. And Merritt just says, hey, you can have that left-hand side. He lifted off. He let him have that one.
I think lead at the line, swap on the way up the S's, then retake the lead in the run between the outer loop and the final 2 corners. But of course, if you're thinking that, your opponent's thinking you're going to do that, so things start to get complicated. And you look here at bottom of your screen, Crisdale boxed in between the teammates, can't take his momentum everywhere. Top of screen, Merritt swaps lanes, wants to defend that critical inside to the outer loop. If he does, can he carry enough momentum to take a race win and further extend his championship lead? You can look top, you can look bottom, both of them for big points, both of them for where you're going to start race number 2 after the top 20 invert. And I think Brodie Watts has got the momentum here to get around the outside, get himself the inside for the final corner. Barney's waiting with the checkered flag in 2 corners time, and every position is in flux right now.
Have a look at the second pack. They're still 3 wide on the run through to the second last corner. They're now going to try and reposition. They're now going to try and bobble over who's got it. Merritt looks to have done it. There's going to be a run out of the final corner for Watts to try and steal that one back. But Merritt's right place, right time. And have a look at Filippi. He's done the exact same thing in the reverse pack. It's whoever leads from the second to last corner. The dash to the line. Who's got the nose in front? It's Filippi by... Is that 1,000th?
It is 200th for the win, 1,000th for the final podium position, just like Watkins Glen again. Sorry, just like Phillip Island again in the Formula Vee Australia E-Series. Get the camera out for the finishers. Every position changed in the top 5 on that final lap, but John Merritt had the speed in the final corner to carry the speed to the line and take the win in race 1 of 3 tonight from Brodie Watts. Ayrton Filippi against the teammates trying to gang up on him. He steals the podium from Ridley, Oliver, Crisdale, Lee Partridge recovering to 7th there after the spin we saw in turn 1. Cam Edwards, Dylan Thomas, Matthew Walker, the top 10 in what was a pretty chaotic race number one. A lot of the big names and our contenders getting bundled around and tagging wheels and ending up in the wall in places. Thortala goes to 11 from Franz Esterbauer, Stefan Butcher, Gary Myers, Matthew Wall, Reese Gardner, Liam Cleese, Mick Fisher, Alex Newton, and Trevor Hearn in 20th will start race number 2 from the pole position. We saw Sean McKenzie convert that 20th place reverse grid pole into a race win at Phillip Island in round number 1. There is form for it, and qualifying can keep you away from some of those incidents. As you see, the rest of the field from 21st on back are going to start race number 2 where they finished race number 1. They line them up, we fire them away for another 15-minute race and expect to see very similar fireworks, I expect.
yeah, about that. I've been treated to a huge barrel roll compilation here tonight from Watkins Glen, and look, in real world racing, you definitely do not want to see those wheels pirouetting through the air, but it's one of the joys of sim racing. That's not going to hurt anyone. That's not going to do damage to any racing car. That's not going to have to be paid for. It's not going to have to be pieced back together. And that's the benefit that we get here. We get the opportunity to enjoy the carnage, in safety. And that was probably the highlight of race number 1 was the carnage.
That was the gap for your winners in race number 1 there. Merritt just keeping his nose in front to take the win. Inverted top 20, 15 minutes, race number 2 of 3 from Watkins Glen in Formula Vee Australia E-Series. Well, our top competitors that we just saw in race number 1 are in the middle of the pack here, and it's Trevor Hearn and Alexander Newton going down in towards turn number 1, but we've got a spinner, and the pack are going to need to dodge that. Newton's converted from second up into the lead of the race. Doesn't look like a big one yet. You don't rule it out on the first lap, though. Some of our quicker drivers try to cut and dice their way through the field.
And one of the critical ones for me was Lee Partridge, restarted in P14. Have a look, already halved that. Up inside the top 7, he's into P6 and setting himself up. You're going to see them snake, you're going to see them weave left and right. They're going to try and stay with the draft, and more have survived this time, so they've played a lot nicer, setting themselves up for that race number 3. Have a look at Philippi, who's been dropped a fair way back. Cuts is now making places back up. So your points leaders and the guys that were towards the front are doing a lot better in race number 2.
Uh-oh, Walker and someone making some contact in the outer loop there. Wheel-to-wheel contact so easily done in these cars, in these kind of conditions. Looks like it might have been Tane Venables. Okay. Definitely a couple of other collisions there. Plenty of smoke in the air. Up front, Newton and Hearn have swapped twice on this lap, and it's Newton back out front in the lead of the race. Mick Fisher, Reese Gardner, Lee Partridge in 5th at the moment.
But the critical thing here is at this point in time, there's cars covering that second margin, so the toe not yet broken. Will they break it up? Will they separate into segmented packs now? And we get little battle packs of condensed cars. Whoa! Exit stage right.
It's Cam Edwards again in the runoff of turn number 1. There's a lot of it. It's paved, but he has gotten that a little wrong somehow on the way in towards turn number 1. Oh, so tough at the start of these races until the pressures come up. It's a bit of a twitchy car with a short wheelbase at the best of times. There's Mackenzie.
The one thing I do not want to be tonight is actually a race controller. Could you imagine trying to rule on these incidents? There's about 5 of them a lap.
Certainly is. Glenn Riddell slots the gap down the middle, 3 wide on the back straight to try to lead his little pack. Next little pack up the road contains these drivers. Lee Partridge has worked his way up to second, maybe about to work his way up to the lead. He's got the inside for the next corner in what's looking like a 5-car breakaway. 5 in the next pack, 3 wide in the group behind that as well.
Yeah, Chrisdale's got some momentum at least going on his side. He's closed down that margin just a little bit. This is the replay at the start in the background. There was somebody up at the front end of the pack that just went really, really backwards. And there it is. That's him right in the middle. It's Liam Caplice that's gone backwards, and they've taken out one of the Pulse racing cars as well. I'm having a look down the order. I'm not 100% sure who it was. Cars that haven't made their way back through the order this race are a lot of the Frog League Juice cars. They're still trapped a long, long way down the pack. So unfortunately for them, they've been escorted out of this lead pack yet again, but they're in this second pack, which is the benefit for them.
3 wide here in the battle over 6th place. Dylan Thomas, John Merritt, and Anton Filippi side by side. Drivers who raced oh so close, wheel to wheel for their respective positions in race number 1. Making that fight once again. You gotta hold your line. You gotta predict what some of the other drivers around you are gonna do. Most of all, you gotta look ahead and try to spot your braking zone. Not that it's much of a braking zone at all here. Look at that. 4th gear, the revs hardly dip as
They've breached the margin. They've caught back up to them. So the working together of this second pack is starting to come into it. And that third pack isn't out of the question either. If you have a look at Reese, he's just starting to dangle off the tail end of the lead pack, and it's buying an opportunity for the next cars in that next pack to tag in. But Reese has got to be careful here. He needs to bunch up a little bit, because if he can shake off that next pack, he's guaranteed a top 5 if he can keep it clean. So that should be his ultimate. It's just really close, tighten that group up in. It means we get back to a 5-car battle pack. If he hangs back there, well, I think it's too much. I think it's too late now. I think they've actually bridged that gap.
Yeah, I think those seconds that were between pack 1, pack 2, pack 3 have evaporated now. It's 16 seconds, 16 cars where you can't find a 1 second gap, but they might form one now. 2 cars around, but not too much contact and not in the wall for Reese Gardner and Mick Fisher. They get going again. It's tough for 5 drivers to work together. You ever done jury duty? It's tough to get 12 people to agree on anything.
I actually have never done jury duty, so I've never had that experience as of yet. But yeah, look, I mean, I've done official racing, and
that's even messier.
Yeah, getting people to work together in official racing doesn't happen. League racing got a little bit more of a chance, but have you ever put a cake down in the middle of the room and said one of you guys gets to eat the cake? Decide who?
Well, people would have to fight you off with a pitchfork, mate.
Mate, I am one of the lads that is in the bigger community, and I swear to God, if anyone else gets that cake, they are not leaving without missing it up.
You and Jay would had a real boxing match for it before he got diagnosed celiac. So 4 for the lead here. They were 4 wide in the next pack. There is starting to be a bit of fresh air between our leaders and this next group. But then, as they touch wheels, and one of your Frog Leap Juice gets T-boned, and it keeps going. It keeps going.
Yeah, and what was happening there was Dean Hunt got tagged, and Dean was actually trying to hold his brakes and sit in the one spot. I think everyone just expected him to try and get rolling and at least try and clear the track, but Dean was in just such a compromised position. The worst possible thing Dean could have done there was moved, because if he moved, he was going to take out even more cars. Unfortunately, everyone predicted him to move.
Yeah, let's have a look. They come out the penultimate corner here. Gets to rejoin. Thought there'd be a little bit more space to the left. And then everyone slowing up, checking up, trying to work their way around. I mean, if it was a parade of drivers, they could have gone down the inside, they could have gone around the outside, but you've got all these drivers fighting each other 2 wide, 3 wide. It's tough for them to split around the sideways car.
I think one of the biggest things that sort of happened in that sort of an incident is if you actually have a look on board, you'll probably see from a lot of these guys, they see the incident and their first reaction is to jump on the brake. Great job, but unfortunately, too much brake. Is exactly what happened to Mick Fisher. Locked rears, and the rear end of that car swung around immediately. And everyone else has had the exact same reaction. When you're transitioning to an emergency style brake in these cars, there isn't an emergency brake. We've got more chaos. It's not over yet.
They were all skittled in the second pack, trying to catch the leading 4, and there's been contact between the Pulse Tuning Echuca Toyota drivers, the other drivers in that pack. You see them all splayed out across the circuit for another lap. We're halfway through this race number 2, and remember, no invert after this. Where they finish here is where they start the longer feature race with more points on offer.
Yeah, so definitely I would be keeping my head. But sometimes, like, I mean, for a lot of these guys, it's just wrong place, wrong time. So it's not really anything you can do. But I'm really, really thoroughly impressed so far from Ayrton Philippi. If you have a look at the driver from Philippi, started this race in P18, finished P3. Oh, look at the chaos! That was the second pack. Everyone got involved in that one. I think of about 10 cars, there were only 2 that got through.
From little crashes, big crashes grow, is how I'd have written the song, because when you got a pack like that, there is just no time to react, firstly, and no avoidance you can do without causing your own incident when they're just stacked up 3 wide like that. They are like bowling pins going down the straight, and when one of them tumbles, they all fall. It's just unavoidable racing that close once something kicks off. It's a nuclear chain reaction.
Well, I mean, it's the most appropriate thing for the Go Bowling Watkins Glen sign, really. Ultimately, that's the sign right there. We haven't seen any bowling at the sign. We've seen it mostly in the corners preceding the Go Bowling sign. Maybe drivers will get to see that and run back down to the pits to grab that spare car.
So this is shaping up to be the group they're going to battle for the win in race number 2. Lee Partridge, the pole sitter, we know massive speed in this car around this circuit, knows the good lines, knows how to carry the momentum that can be so important. But Ayrton Philippi, I mean, how good was he with the timing of his run, with his car positioning, with that racecraft and that know-how in the pack to steal a podium position in race number 1 when he was outnumbered, outgunned by the teammates. They couldn't outfox him.
Yeah, you got to get up pretty early to beat some of these guys. There's some really, really wise and intelligent heads.
I mean, say this about Ayrton Philippi, you know, if he sees a gap, he goes for it. He's a racing driver.
He does. He does not at all, you know, do things by halves. He's driven through the track immensely. It's been an awesome drive from Philippi, and he's continuing to find that preferred outside line for him on the run down the outer loop. If you have a look at where he's positioning himself, just about every lap he wants to get to that left-hand side of the track for drivers, right-hand side of the track for broadcast. He's setting himself up now with 4 minutes on the clock. He's timing his run. This may be a tester to see how far back he's got to be to win this race.
He's got the helmet too. I've only just noticed he's got the namesake helmet on as well with the Brazilian sponsors. So that all bodes well, and he's showed us his form in race number 1. He sits 4th in the pack at the moment. 3 more laps for these guys. They avoid that spun lapped car. Tell you what though, Glenn Riddell in 5th caught them in the last couple of laps. He's well positioned for if they lose their tact and decorum in these final couple of laps, and they are 3 wide up through the S's here. Watch Philippi here from 4th as they came out of turn 1. He's looking for the double draft, looking to change the lane, looking for the inside. He's got the nose to sniff out a gap or an opportunity in these final laps.
I think the critical thing here is have a look at Riddell dropped in behind Crysdale, got a run. Immediately, Crysdale let the run go on. As soon as he got enough momentum, didn't fight him for it. Those two are slingshotting, and that's how you're going to catch. It's not being bumper to bumper, tail to tail, pushing each other down the straight. It's slingshotting. That's how you're going to close the gap to these packs. They're in the draft. They are in the draft. They're not fighting each other. They're both going to carry the momentum through the corners. And with 2 laps left to run, I actually think that's where you want to be right now, is that far back off this lead pack, because all of a sudden the guys up ahead are going to get a little bit more aggressive and might mistime things, and you can come up on them with a whole head of steam and time the run right. Look at Riddell. He's already there. He's following Philippi.
Yep. They've caught them, Riddle and Crysdale in the leading pack, but almost touching. Crysdale's going to spin out, checking up to not drill Riddell. It's great sportsmanship, but it's cost him pretty severely. The way they've caught these leaders, though, the racing lines, like the $200,000 briefcase in Deal or No Deal, two people can't both have it. So as they go too wide through these corners, they're both losing out on their momentum, that optimal racing line. And the drivers behind who will, lift out, give the other driver it, slingshot, work together, can go quicker. 3 wide. Felipe puts the tires on the grass to the drivers inside to try to come from 4th in the pack to lead. They are about to start the final lap in a couple corners time. Is he following my strategy of if you're first to the white flag, they'll pass you up the hill, you'll pass them back, but I don't think he's going to be first to the white flag because they're 3 wide for the lead, about to be just 4 kilometers left in this race, points on the line, and then it sets the grid for the feature, the final race tonight from Watkins Glen.
I'm going to be honest, Dave, it comes down to momentum off turn number 1. I think you've got to have momentum off turn number 1. Look at the energy that Barney's putting into that one. He knows what this means to these guys. 5 cars, throw a handkerchief over them. You know what? Cut that handkerchief in 2. You only need half of it.
Look how Barney waves that flag, though. iRacing's no longer supported on Mac because Tim Cook could never. Lee Partridge leads the way on the final lap. It's uphill. It's a massive run. They're all full throttle. They're VMAX, but then picking up the slipstream. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? They all check each other up, tripping over each other to try to have the white line on the right-hand side of the circuit. All of them. But Ayrton Felipe, he tucks back into the draft on the straight. Partridge will not give up. Drivers right. They're a Roman box formation except for Felipe, who looks to the high line to go around the outside, almost flat out, full speed through this quick banked outer loop that then points them back in the direction of the checkered flag, of the race win, of the glory. Riddell and Partridge absolutely wheel to wheel, but Riddell, he caught the leading pack. He got onto the slipstream. He's gotten his nose to the lead. Everything is the racetrack. If you're Ayrton Felipe, if it's pavement, if it's grass, he's going to get it, but there wasn't room. Riddell goes all the way out through the penultimate corner, takes the racing line through the final corner. He'll have the speed off the corner. Newton and Partridge, 2nd and 3rd, try to follow the slipstream, try to fan out, but the checkered flag for race number 2 is going to belong to Glenn Cito Riddell. Behind him, Partridge, Newton, Hearn. Felipe couldn't pull the same trick twice.
No, but I tell you what, a Pulse Racing tuned car has managed to grab both races so far tonight. But it's been a different driver both times, so clearly they're working on their technique together. This is what it's fighting through, way back down in the pack. That was so sick. That's one of the best last laps of a race I've seen ever. Could you see? You saw Philippi. He ran out of room. He repositioned the car. He knew that if he fought down on that inside line, he wasn't making the corner, but he still put some points in the bank. And I think your points leader from tonight's race is Philippi with a P3 in race 1. And what? You come home with P5 in race number 2? He's got to be leading the points.
2.42 miles from the white flag to the checkered flag, and the whole time, any of those 5 drivers would have been paying equal odds right up until that run off the final quarter. It still could have been anyone's, and by the end, they're all covered by less than half a second. Then Riddell gets the chockies, gets the pole position for race number 3, ahead of Partridge, Newton, Hearn, and Felipe. And Ray Oliver, Reese Gardner, Rob Christdale, Matthew Wall, and Cam Edwards complete our top 10. Behind them, James Nesbitt, Sean McKenzie, Jason Cutts, Kyle Ridley, Brody Watts, Dylan Thomas, Josh Munro, Matthew Walker, Stephen Butcher, and Tom Davies. Pretty well the top half of the field there, Scott.
Yeah, and again, I think it's coming down to it. You've really got to bank points. Look at where John Merritt's finished all the way back in P21. Beecham, Bettridge, Tullow, Harriet, Fisher, Liam Caplice, a driver with so much pedigree and ability and talent in these cars, all the way down to 27. Tane Venables, Gary Myers, Andrew Gameau, all of these cars managing to stay on the lead lap by the skin of their teeth. We had nearly half the field in that first race off the lead lap. This time it's not going to be. We're actually going to end up with 30 of 35 cars on the lead lap. And that says to me they're all learning from each turn. They're all trying to bank some more points. Everyone from 31st down is going to finish off the lead lap. Dean Hunt, you saw him, was inside the top 10, and that was his car that caused that massive pile up with cars just continued to pile on in. What about lap 3, lap 4? Oh, chaos. We've got one more of these races, Dave.
Yeah, we've got one more, race number 3. Still a couple minutes away in Formula Vee Australia E-Series. Well, we're in round 3, and it has been non-stop action. So thanks to those who've made the championship possible, the organisation possible, and this SimSpeed broadcast possible. CXC Racing, it's Lux, it's Giant Mandara, V-Race, Experience, Litech Systems, and all organised by Southern Cross Esports. Great to have Formula Vee Australia as well. Backing this one, bringing all of our Formula Vee competitors from around the country, coast to coast. All 5 time zones together. Take a little break here as we catch our breath on SimSpeed TV. And when we come back, it's the 20-minute feature race. It's the one they all want to win tonight.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome back. We've got one more race for you tonight in the Formula Vee Australia E-Series. Round 3 from Watkins Glen International, and we are on the Classic Cup layout, which means less corners, less braking zones, more time at full throttle, more slipstreaming, and it has produced pack racing in Formula V's, but also some very close wheel-to-wheel racing that's led to some accidents as well in tonight's racing. Final race is 20 minutes. It's the feature race. It pays more points, and they grid up as they finished race number 2 just now, which means Riddell on pole from Lee Partridge, Alex Newton and Trevor Hearn there in second. As we just refresh you on this, with Etan Filippi in 5th. He's had the highest average finishing position across the races so far. So if he carries that on, he's getting a good haul of points out of this. You've got Reese Gardner, Rob Crisdale, Matthew Wall, Cam Edwards, James Nesbitt and Sean McKenzie as our top 12. They're revving. They're ready to go. It's a longer race. Will it mean that they play it any differently? I don't think so. Off the line, down towards turn number 1, relatively even starts everywhere, but they got to be careful because once again, it's cold tyres and the risk is high.
Lee Partridge got an absolute monster of a jump, so he got a great launch, and he's going to lead us down to turn number 1. I want to be on those front couple of rows. Ray Oliver's grabbed a ton of spots as well from P6 up to P4. So really good start, good car positioning from Leap Juice driver. But there's going to be a pit stop in this one. You need to pit with a buddy. You need to find yourself a dancing partner. I actually don't hate coming in a little bit early, provided you've got somebody to work with and somebody to slingshot draft with here, Dave.
And provided pit entry isn't blocked.
Yeah, well, look, that's definitely an important part. Oh my word!
Deeper in the field, some action. 3 wide here in the middle as your top 3 look to try to break away. Behind them, Crysdale's made a handful of spots. So Sean McKenzie up 7 in 1 corner on the opening lap. And you've got Riddell, Partridge and Alexander Newton as your top 3 looking to get away.
And the critical thing there from Partridge and Riddell was that both of them knew the phrase, when you've got momentum, you've got to take it somewhere. And both of them didn't fight it. That's how they're making their moves. That's how they're extracting pace. And that's how they're starting a 3-car breakaway. Let the momentum happen. Let the other driver get the momentum and then let him on through. Don't fight him. That's the key that they're really making work. Oh my word. Did we actually have? We did. There's 1 car off the tail end of this pack. There are 34 cars nose to tail in this pack at the end of lap number 1. These guys have been learning day.
They go 3 wide through turn number 1 and survive the Scott Rankin jinx, at least for one of the more laps that we're going to have in this one. Oh, you've got 1.6 seconds, I think, between 3rd and the group that are 3 wide in 4th place. For that top 3, you need all 3 to cooperate if they're not going to tangle, trip over and slow each other down and get away from this group. But for Riddell, he's got teammates in that pack behind. So does he have any conflict of interest there at all? They are 5 wide. Going down to 4 wide in this group as they then make their way, then funneling down into 3 wide. Only just a sensible, pragmatic, safe 3 wide through the outer loop for our top 10 pack.
Have you ever seen those little balls that you can sort of unfold and stretch out to like a reasonable, nearly a smaller soccer ball size, and you can fold them really up, and they're nearly a bouncy ball size? That's what they look like coming on down to the outer loop. Oh, there we go.
And it happens. That looks like Filippi, McKenzie, others. A handful. And who's out there in the wall? There's Jason Cutts, one of our top 3 in our championship as well. Did it feel inevitable? They got about 4 kilometers from where you tried to jinx them.
They did very well. They did an extremely good job. But Jason Cutts, I mean, it's really not been a good night. I think it has been a huge amount of just bad luck for Jason Cutts. He just cannot get through. So that's just been unfortunate for Jason. I mean, championship opportunity, a really, really good opportunity to put himself in some great spots. And here's the replay. Just a little bit too much space for Filippi. He wanted to turn in, and the car on the inside should have probably maybe turned in. That's racing.
Oh, it's just so tough when you're 3 wide because the guy in the middle doesn't want to pinch down on the guy in the center, so he's up a little high. So the guy all the way on the outside, is trying to take what he thinks is a sensible 3 wide line, but the guy in the middle is a little higher than he thinks. So we've got our top 3 all in a blanket, not getting away from the group behind because you've got some super quick guys here in 4th, 5th, and 6th. John Merritt's up 16 positions from where he started the race just 5 minutes ago, and now he's not because they make wheel-to-wheel contact just where we saw it happen a couple laps ago.
Yeah, positioning, timing, all the rest of it. Merritt,
He survived about a meter after I jinxed him.
Yeah, look, you got there. I mean, I was surprised. I said something and I was like, oh no, I shouldn't have said something. But are you kidding? 34 cars made that lead lap all chained up together. That was insane. That was so good. Merritt's going to fall a long, long way down here. He's got 20 minutes to try and build something and put it all back together. Pit window opening. I think it's just about open. 15-minute race. We're now 5 minutes into the race. Oh, that's a tricky one to call. And Merritt has passed it on to the race controllers to have a look at. The car behind hasn't really lifted, but at the same time, maybe he's lifted a fraction too much. That is so difficult to call from the race controller.
You're looking at 3rd place, looking at 1st place, or is it 2nd place? Well, it might have been 2nd, but I think with a little bit of help from Newton's Cradle, he's gone through into 1st, or tried to with the momentum around the outside. That high line, not favourable in these cars, I don't think, but obviously I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's momentum. He cut. Oh, there we go. Now it's kicking off in that 2nd pack. They got through 1 lap. 1 lap was too far.
Well, it's all for the biscuits now, isn't it, though? Because it's the final of 3 laps. This doesn't affect where you grid up next round, round number 4. It's just points at the end tonight. 1st and 2nd races, you do maybe need to be a little bit more circumspect, knowing that the grid positions carry over. That is just a millimetre of overlap, a millimetre of contact, and that's all it takes.
There's nothing in that. And that's just come down from Ray carrying a little more entry speed in and got the nose up and ahead, and the car behind didn't carry the entry speed, so he could settle the car a little bit early. But the benefit of that means he could get back to the gas. They've both sort of changed their momentum in opposite directions at the same time. And when you're driving bigger and heavier cars, that level of close racing, you can't do it. It's, the guy that brakes early, my braking technique, I generally brake quite early but quite soft, and I'll carry the brake a long way through. And you see a lot of incidents sort of like that where I'm still carrying the brake deeper into the corner, but I'm carrying less of the brake, and the guy behind me is just not expecting me to get on the brake that soon. But with these cars, it's just a lift off. It's not even touching them.
Well, here is John Merritt, currently 26th. It's not been his round, the championship leader, has it?
Well, I mean, he got race 1, so, I mean, he got 1 in the books. But, yeah, from there on, it's not really been a great chance for him. I mean, his saving grace here is that everyone's going to have to do that pit stop. That pit lane's potentially going to get quite clogged up. Cars feeding in and feeding out could cause chaos. There's a lot of opportunity for him left in the race, and I think he's got in, he's got out, and he's got that pit stop done.
Oh,
Focusing on.
How did they keep out of that one? Cam Edwards and others in this group here. Bit of contact, but they all survive it, dust themselves on.
Oh! Rebel's around for the lead.
He is. He's in the run-off of turn number 1, race leader.
Just over-rotated it in. I had a look at turn number 1, and Lee Partridge had lifted a little bit earlier, but John sent it sailing into turn 1.
It's checked these 2 up as well, and it's seen the pack behind close up and break that 1 second barrier that's sort of so critical to the slipstream. Look at them trying to work together, trying to bump in 1st and 2nd, but I think it's too little too late. Here's what happens. Down the inside, on the narrow line, trying to break in a little too deep, potentially. Your race leader comes unstuck.
Yeah, so I think it's just a case of you saw Lee sort of lift on entry and let him through, and I think he's carried. There would be nothing in the amount of momentum that he's carried, but it was just too much for those tyres. The fronts were all well one truly happy with it. The rear's not so much, and around she goes.
Championship leader John Merritt has been given a black flag by race control. Again, his final 2 races not playing out for him how he'd like. There's 8 cars within a second for the race lead.
Here we go. It's going to get even tighter right now, Dave. Have a look at the cars that are slicing, dicing left, right, and center. Tane Venables, after a horrid night in the other 2 races, finds himself leading this race at the halfway point.
Tane Venables started 28th. He leads. Liam Caplice started 27th. He's in 4th place in this lead pack. They have come from nowhere. And we say at this point in the race, halfway now, everyone who's within a second of the lead is an equal chance because anything can happen. It's like rolling dice from here on out.
I'd like to point out as well from Cameron Edwards, that car has been backwards twice tonight. And he has managed to come away with, in race 1, a P8 finish, in race 2, a P10 finish, in race 3, he's inside the top 10. And again, there'll be 3 top 10 finishes from all 3 races. That would put him potentially on track for a round win.
First and second bang wheels coming out of the outer loop. They're 3 wide in the group from 13th on down that you see on the bottom of your screen. Oh, they almost make contact up at front as well. 3 wide in the group behind. Wherever you look, I hope you remember to breathe normally.
Oh, man. You're holding your breath left.
And there it is.
There it goes. Yep. Car on the outside turned in just a little bit aggressively, and then it all kicks off in the background, and everyone at the back end of that one just piles on in. Benefit is it's happened right on the pit lane entry, so they can just dive on in and get those fast repairs out of the way, get their pit stops out of the way. Like I said, if there's somebody else pitting, I'm pitting early. I'm not waiting. I want to get out of this junk.
You ready for my shocked face? Here it is. Oh.
That was a lot of shock.
So here you've got Mackenzie in the blue and yellow. Dean Hunt looked like he was part of the way alongside, looked like he was coming, and the 2 of them meet at the apex. And again, once you've got 1 car sideways, there is not space, time, or magic that can help those drivers behind dodge.
Oh, David Hayne. It's close enough to David Blaine, isn't it? You know enough about magic of pulling wins out of the hat. Who is your magical pick here, David, not Blaine Hayne, for this one at this point in time? Surely you've got to go with the commentator's favourite. It's going to be Reese Gardner, right?
The Southpaw racer deserves a good go. What's happening at pit entry here? Just a checkup from Edwards and Crysdale there. Venables and Lee Partridge look to get away. They're 4 wide in this group behind. Is it time for a breakaway with 5 laps to go? Round 3 of the Formula Vee Australia E-Series from Watkins Glen. Back behind, they're all compromised on the run through turn number 1, and the run off that corner is so critical. It's 2 kilometers from the apex of turn 1, up the S's, down the straight, skipping the bus stop chicane and into what's almost a flat out outer loop. A flat outer loop, if you will.
And everyone wants that draft. Everyone wants a toe. Venables has got it. Everyone else is squabbling for it. They're back to 4 wide again. They love this. They love working in it at 4 wide.
What does your spotter even say in that situation other than just hold your damn line because you've got no other options? There's not real estate for it.
I've never been in a 4 wide situation where the spotter's had an opportunity to call. I've heard top 3, I've heard middle 3, I've heard bottom 3. I've never heard inside left of 4 wide. Is that how you call it? I don't know. They're inventing terminology.
No, I reckon sandwich, you're the meat, and Big Mac, you're the first patty.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's 5 wide. Your middle bread, your bottom patty, or your top patty in a 5 wide situation.
Double cheeseburger, you're the cheese.
Ooh. I do love me some cheese. This is getting spicy now. It's split up into 2 packs of 4. Timing this pits. Maybe these guys might.
And contact. A Partridge around.
Is that
The
Newton?
police.
Oh, it's the police, yeah.
Cannot catch a break in this one. There's only just space to rejoin that and stay in this battle, stay in this fight. Cam Edwards leads, but you can see the run that Tane Venables has got, and he gets to what will become the inside line at the outer loop. Drysdale's got a lot of speed there as well, walking that gap.
Here we go. Here we go. It's kicking on. We're under 5 minutes left to go. Do these guys even require a pit stop? Maybe they've got enough fuel to go. Maybe it's 20 minutes of just slicing and dicing, and here comes the car to the inside. The send of the century.
That's Trevor Hearn's music as he gets to the apex and the curbing at the inside of the loop. Looks to carry some good speed. Venables behind him with heaps as well. To the left-hand side of the road goes Robert Crisdale. They are 4 wide for the lead. It can't stay that way. It can't, and it won't, because Tane Venables and Cam Edwards make contact.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Cam Edwards, I mean, it's just been every race tonight. It just has not been able to keep it together at the right points in time. But now that thins this lead pack out by 2 more cars. We've got Crisdale, Hearn, Gardner and Newton. 4 minutes on the clock now. What's that, 3 laps left to run? Have they got the fuel to get home? It's going to be so tight.
This is an incredible amount of full throttle at this circuit. So here's the 4 wide. As you can see, the cheese and the pickle make contact, and the bottom bun gets also collected as the car jumps sideways.
Yeah, I really don't see any better way than burger terminology to really explain through what's going on. But ultimately, in that sort of a situation, it's on the driver that's slightly behind. It's on them to understand where they're going, because they can see the car ahead of them. The driver that's fractionally ahead will hold their line and will be looking in their rearview mirror, but there's going to be blindsided. They're not really going to be able to pick up where that next car is behind, so it's on that next car behind, so it's the car that was the meat in that sandwich that was the one that was responsible. They had to hold their line. They've shuffled slightly. It's racing. It's racing at this speed, at this proximity. It's going to happen.
We got Barney the flagman, who's the blimp pilot, because they've got a great view to work out what's happening, who's got momentum, who's taking what lane. Tune into the radio, give us a traffic report, which lanes are moving freely as we come towards the end of this race. Underneath 3 minutes on the clock, it will be 2 more laps for that leading group. And the next group here looks like Andrew Gamo, Matthew Harriott, Glenn Riddell, and Dylan Thomas in the Daytona USA Sega livery, it looks.
Appropriate too, that one. It's the closest I think we're going to get to Daytona this year in terms of the Formula V's, but oh man, it's still, look at them. Are you kidding me? 20 minutes of racing and they're still this close together. They're still drafting. They're still vying for position, battling for P6, battling for the lead. Venables is a little bit out in his zone. He's the man in the middle, and I think he's sort of out of time to make it back to this lead pack potentially. He might get lucky.
Up top, the leaders. Down bottom, the group battling over 6th place with Andrew Gamo in 8th at the moment. Started 30th on the grid. There's always enough carnage in V's racing. It's always close enough that you can make up some positions. Look like they're going to go 3 wide. They look like they're going to make contact, and that almost looks like a cookie cutter of what we saw before. Drivers make some wheel-to-wheel contact, and it's the driver on the outside of the 3 or 4 wide who suffers.
Yeah, it's Cam Edwards going backwards yet again. He's dropped a whole bunch of space. Barney, white flag in hand, the last time tonight that he's going to have that one. It's going to be close. It's going to be hot. It's going to be heavy. We've got 1 lap left of racing. This is the last time through turn number 1. Who's done their homework? I think Crysdale's in a great spot.
It looks like it's going to be between this top 4, Trevor Hearn, Alexander Newton, Robert Crysdale, Reese Gardner, in that order for the moment. Expect it all to change by the time they get to the next corner, and with 4 instead of 5 or 6 or 8 drivers at the front group, I rate what Reese is doing here, giving himself a car length to then build up the momentum, see what lane opens, what opportunity presents. The other 3, they all fan out, they stall out. Crysdale has the nose in front, but he's up high. He's going to maybe get left high and dry through the outer loop here. Long way around, not necessarily where the grip is. Here's Gardner. Here's the Southpaw racer from out west. He looks to go one way. The lane closes. He looks to go another. It's Hearn leading at the moment. It's Crysdale with the momentum. He puts his nose in front, outside for the penultimate corner, inside for the final corner. It's where you look like you wanted to be in some of the previous races because he holds it tough. He gets to the inside of the final corner. He blocks out second place from taking the racing line. Checkered flag in the air for the final race of the night, and they make contact. Who's going to make it to the line first then? It is going to be Reese Gardner from 4th on the final lap. Stephen Bradbury, is that you?
You're kidding me. You are absolutely kidding me. Started the last lap, P4, and gets to the checkered flag with the win. Are you kidding me? The instant that I saw him get blocked by Alexander Newton with 2 corners to go, that was a phenomenal block from Newton, by the way. That was perfect car positioning. Really rated that block. My word. And then it all continues way back down the pack, and they resolve it as well. I can tell you what, Alex Newton is celebrating right now. He is wrapped with that result.
I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but Reese Gardner has blown the roof off on that one. You got to be in it to win it. First and second, didn't want to blink, and he was there to pick it up. I'm with you. Newton closed off the lane that he wanted, did everything perfect, but in the end, Gardner from Newton, Venables, Hearn, Crysdale limps it to 5th. From Andrew Gamo, Dylan Thomas, Glenn Riddle, Lee Partridge, and Cam Edwards is our top 10. We said it in the previous race. Anyone has a chance on the final lap if they're within a second of the lead, because anything can happen. And in Formula V racing, it often does. The rest of our finishing results, though, as we catch our breath, and then we'll have a good chat to some of our drivers, no doubt. Liam Caplice, if he had no bad luck, would he have any luck at all tonight? Ethan Philippi, Matthew Harriott, Kyle Ridley, Thor Solis, Stephen Butcher, Matthew Wall, Jason Cutts, Sean McKenzie, and Jonathan Skerry to 20th place. Behind them, Matthew Walker, James Nesbitt, Gary Myers, and Neville Bettridge, Brody Watts, Tom Davey, Mick Fisher, Jordan Bielek, Phil Gardner, Franz Estebauer. A lap down those drivers. Not seeing the finish, and then pretty much retirements there with Ray Oliver, Dean Hunt, John Merritt, Drew Beecham, Josh Munro, and Alex McDonald. I don't think anyone had any consistency across all 3 races. I mean, flashes in the pan from certain drivers. What a performance from the race 1 winner, John Merritt, but then couldn't replicate it anywhere else. Your race 2 winner, Glenn Riddle, great performance from him, but then a 24th and an 8th in the other races. And for Reese Gardner, 16th, a 7th, and then a win there that I don't think he knew he was going to get until the last second.
Well, see, that's the thing for Reese. With that final result, like, he's got 2 top 10s. There are only 2 drivers tonight who finished in the top 10 in all 3 races. He's right in and there. Like, the win is just worth so much that he's potentially given him a shot at a really high placing in tonight's round. So this is going to be the replay of the final corner again. I did actually want to see this one from Crysdale and Trevor Hearn. I mean, Hearn's got to go for it. You got to go for it. But from Crydale's perspective, you've got to cover the line. You've got to try and defend. What's the decision? And the thing is, I don't think that Crydale was very deliberate with how he wanted to position the car, which left Trevor Hearn with a decision to make. Hearn made a decision, and at the same time, it was the wrong decision. He had a moment to make it. And a lot of the times when you make those decisions, a 50-50 call. He's picked wrong.
You want to win the race. You come out of that final corner. You are going to keep the throttle pinned. Your crash avoidance is to change lanes. It's to go right if they're left, go left if they're right. And he's looking at that driver in front of him, not taking the far left, shortest run to the line. And he starts to look to that left-hand side. And the door doesn't open as far as he wants. And he's already committed, nose in there. And the two of them make unfortunate contact. But we get to speak to man who picked up all the pieces. It's Reese Bradbury Gardner tonight. I mean, when did you know you'd won that race?
When I passed the two leaders as they hit the wall.
Oh my word! What a mental effort tonight. It was the moment of, when do I commit to the lane? When is it going to be the right lane? And have I put myself in the right position? It was difficult from lights out to checkered flag. And thoughts on the racing so far?
Well, races 1 and 2 didn't quite go my way. I ended up getting involved in a couple of incidents through, at the very least, very little fault of my own. But race 3, I was just pledging to keep my distance and keep it nice and safe behind everybody else. And, as the laps ticked away, as those incidents started happening in front of me, I was like, I'm on the back of the lead pack here. I need to take it easy and then wait for the final lap to make my move. And coming into the second last corner, I thought, nah, it's probably not going to happen, because they were going 3 wide in front of me, and I thought, that's just going to be the way of it. But then made it into third out of the penultimate corner, and then as I got to the apex of the final corner, I just went, yeah, all right, it's over. But then they started weaving. So in like half a second, it went from, okay, that's it, to, oh my God.
Reese Gardner, Formula Vee Australia race winner. Really great representation of the series of the drivers and the sim racers from WA. You got a bit of bragging rights now.
Yeah, thank goodness. I'm hoping that one of the teams is going to approach me for a test at some point. They're probably going to have to modify the car a little bit to accommodate my one-handedness, though. But all joking aside, I'm really happy with this win. It's something that I've been waiting for a while. It has been a very long time since I've gotten a broadcast win on SimSpeed like that, and I guess my first win in a Southern Cross Esports sanctioned series, not to mention Formula Vee Australia as well. So yeah, I'm going to enjoy this.
I'll just leave it in fourth, brother. That's all you seem to need around a track like this.
Yeah, exactly. Leaving it in fourth. I mean, I did go down to third for turn 1, but everywhere else it was literally just lift, keep it in fourth. That's it.
Reese, big congratulations. I mean, you've got to be in that pack. You've got to make it to the end of the race if you're going to stand any chance. And you were there for when the speed skaters in front of you tangled blades.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks very much for having me, guys. And before I go, I just want to give a big thanks to all the guys at Fusion Sim Racing for all of their support, and a big shout out to my Twitch chat who were there with me the whole way. Thanks very much, everybody.
No home insurers you need to say thanks to?
No.
No, didn't think so, brother. Hope to see you around, and good luck in the remaining rounds.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, he's such a great guy. He's such a passionate racer, and a big cuddly bloke too, I reckon. So we're all thrilled for Reese Garner to come away with that win, and his other results, a 16th and a 7th. That's the story of just about everyone tonight. We pointed it out. There's no consistency through the field. Best I can spot is Lee Partridge with a 7th, a 2nd, 9th, and a pole. We've got a couple other drivers who'll come have a chat with us. So What are we going to do, alphabetically?
Just grab him. Just grab whoever's next. Just grab him. Just grab someone. Pick anyone. Doesn't matter, Dave. Oh my word, Alex! My goodness, we were watching on board. We were actually just complimenting the block at the second on the run between the outer loop and turn 6 as well. That was a phenomenal block to shut the lane down on Reese Gardner. But the race itself as a whole, it was about managing the lanes. It was about being in the right place at the right time, and well, skates coming together at an Olympic final. Mate, in terms of things, the night itself for you, obviously, race 2, race 3, it sort of worked out. It all went to plan, but race 1 didn't. But then again, sometimes it's about race 1 doesn't go quite so well. You do a lot of learning. You learn the lanes. You learn the overlaps. You learn all that sort of thing. Is perhaps that what went in your favour here tonight?
I'm not too sure it went into my favour. Going back to dead last on lap 1 of race 1, having come in and use a fast repair. But maybe it did because it took me out of all the traffic and I could just basically go down and just be on my own until I found it was Trevor Hearn, and we just worked together and just kept working through the pack, and that's the way it finished up being P2 in race 2 and P2 in race 3. So P3 in race 2.
Well, 2 podiums from 3 races. I mean, at the end of the night, you really can't complain about that, particularly in a field as competitive as this one.
No, that's all I'm trying to do. I had a look at the. I don't usually look at the points, but I've done quite well in the past 2 rounds in the final race. So I had a look, and it was P4 to start the round in championship. So it's just about keep collecting points. Hopefully it goes your way, and that's what I'm continuing to do. And just hopefully stay out of trouble and collect points and see where we end up in the final race end of the year.
And finally, why don't you give us a few words from the guys that make it possible and support you, Mr. Alex Newton, driver of the 32.
Yeah, no, thanks. First of all, I've got to thank Brent from Lux Performance. He sponsored me to do this event with the V's. I've got to thank Ross from RSW Graphics and Turn In. He does all my liveries and all my actual race merchandise over here in WA. Got to thank Johnny from Racecraft. He backs me all the time. I usually go down there and use his gear, but he's away at the moment, so I'm just sitting at home using the old Logitech G25, and it's a bit of a handful, but we're getting through it. Cochrane Photography, he usually takes all my photos, and then also Tom from Comtech, he does a lot for me with my actual race car, and he sponsors me a lot, just helping me out. Got to thank you guys for putting the broadcast on. It's awesome. I watch it back every week. The guys that run it, Cam, Ray, thank you guys for putting on such a great event. And hopefully the next few rounds we continue to collect points and be up at the pointy end.
Ladies and gentlemen, driver of the 32 tonight finishes P3 in race number 2, P2 in race number 3. They flip-flopped on that one. Hopefully next week will be P1 race 1, P2 race 2, P3 race 3. So that's what you're going to work on for next week for me, Alex. Thanks, mate. Thank you for joining us here in the booth tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
What have you got next for us, Dave? I think it's, P3, Tane Venables, I think is available for us.
I'm thinking my driver of race 1 and 2.
Oh, you want to talk to Arten Philippi?
Absolutely, I do. He joins us now. Really consistent at the start of the night there. A third, a fifth, dropped away a little bit in that final race, but you were all in those packs and absolutely in contention for wins tonight.
Yeah, well, honestly, I really tried my best, and I think you're pumping up my tyres a little bit there, but I felt like I did really well, and you guys have done really well putting up the servers and streaming it, so I do really appreciate all the guys here doing their best.
So tell us, wind back to, that race 1 and that race 2. You're in the lead pack, you're with the leaders. Barney waves that white flag. What's the strategy? Are you hoping to get your nose in front for turn 1, or are you counting back the corners, trying to work out where you want to be for the very end of the lap?
Well, the goal is sort of to try and get him into the second last corner. I feel like if you could lead into the second last corner, they won't pit you on the straight. That's the thing I learnt from race 1. But race 2, I think it was when I finished 5th. I got squeezed a little bit, so I wasn't able to make that crucial pass before there. But I just wanted to bring the points home because I think I was in contention for round leader at that point. But then, unlucky race 3, not much you can do about that.
Tell us some about Ed and Felipe. What kind of racing you into? What are you doing? How's it going?
I race Formula V's this year and last year. I also race Carnocross, like Subaru, bit of rally sort of thing,
That's awesome. Lots of sort of those real-world Formula V competitors in this championship. Of course, that's who it's from, but it's typically sort of more of a state-based class. So how are you going? Maybe racing against some familiar names, but also some from across the country?
Yeah, definitely. In past years online, I've managed to meet some of these guys who are raced up north because I'm from Victoria, so I haven't had the chance to race them yet, but getting sort of their driving style in the sim, might help a little bit when I do race them in the real thing. But yeah, a lot of familiar names tonight, and everyone did really well. For us real racers, it can be a little bit hard jumping on the sim, except for Lee Partridge. He's pretty good.
Yeah, certainly. Congrats then on those results, the points haul, and look forward to seeing you next round at Oran Park.
Cool. Thank you guys so much.
And Felipe sounds like he was probably born after Oran Park was demolished, but that's just a wild guess. We've still got it on iRacing though, Scott, and I feel like characteristics-wise, pretty similar to Winton. A bit narrower than where we've just been at Watkins Glen. Not quite as long on the straights and a little more technical.
Yeah, a little bit more technical. It's going to really be about balancing the car, particularly with all the bumps. The thing about Oran Park is there's multiple sections where the track sort of falls away in different sections of the track. You get a little bit tight. Maybe one of the tyres is actually going to be off the ground. I actually had some chances to race the new Toyota 86, and that's exactly what happens to the Toyota 86, getting tyres in the air. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be balancing. Yeah, sure, the drafting is still going to be part of it, but it's all going to come down to car positioning. We've talked tonight about the drafting battles, about the racing up and down, the overtaking that goes on right throughout the field. But the next time out, it's going to be all about the classics. It's going to be one of those tracks that these cars would have raced on in years gone by, and whether or not some of these guys can learn the lessons of the drivers of years gone by.
You'll see it all here on SimSpeed TV, of course. Round 4 of the Formula Vee Australia E-Series, Wednesday, 8th of February. I will have just come back from the Bathurst 12-hour then. Same time, same channel. We look forward to it. Always close racing. Great names, great characters. It's great to have Formula V competitors from all across the nation racing against each other here on iRacing in the Formula Vee Australia E-Series. Subscribe to us here on SimSpeed TV so you won't miss a thing of this championship and all of the other great competitions we broadcast. I've been David Haynes, Scott Rankin with me, Jay Kennedy, our producer. Boy, was he busy. Split screen, pulling up the replays. We'll see you at Oran Park in a few weeks' time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got with the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness! Half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?